Hello people and welcome back to tutorial 7 in the Node.js series, and in this video we will look how you connect your Express application to a database and perform CRUD operations. CRUD, create, read, update, delete on your database. For this series we will be making use of a NoSQL database, and one of the most popular one is MongoDB, and we won't be installing it on our own system. Instead we will be deploying an instance in the cloud and we'll be making use of it using MongoDB Atlas. As we move forward, let's start by creating a new Node.js application. So let's say npm init -y. Okay, that gives us a basic application, right? And we can say npm install express, right? So that this installs express to our application. And we will also create a new folder, call it src, right? And this is where all our source code is going to live. Let us create the new file, call it app.js, and write our basic express server. Right, so we have our bare bones express application up and running. Let us try to run this. We'll say node app.js. Okay, so we need to cd into that. Node app. Okay, so the application is up and running. Let us try to hit a request. And by the way, if you subscribe, that makes me happy, so do it. All right, let's say localhost 3000. So our application is up and running. Also, before we move forward, let us make few more configurations so that our development journey becomes easy. We'll come back to the scripts and we will add a script called dev. We already installed nodemon on our system, but you can do that by saying npm. You can do that by saying npm I nodemon -g to install it globally, right? That is something you can do. So we'll say nodemon src/app.js, just like that, and that should configure our developer command, so that next time all we have to do is npm run dev. Yep. Let us set up our MongoDB Atlas. So and by the way, guys, subscribe because that helps me in existential crisis. Okay, so all you have to search for is MongoDB Atlas on Google and head over to this very first link right here, and you can again admire this beautiful page and head over to start for free. Start free, right? You come here, you can sign up with Google, same old drill. I'm gonna sign up with Google. So once you're in, you get to see this agreement. You can again say accept, submit. Okay, so we are in our console, and right here we'll create a very first database or a deployment, whatever you would like to call it. So we'll go ahead and do this create. Okay, right here you are asked to select what cluster you'd like, right? So again, we are just testing and going, we're about to just learn, right? So what we'll do is we can select M0. This is going to be for free, right? And if you have a choice, you can select Google Cloud, Azure, whatever, but I'm gonna let it be on the default settings. Okay, that's mostly we need, and we can now create our deployment. And yes, this thing as well. All right, so here we are, and again, this is just to guide you how you can set up a username and a password. So for now, what we'll do is we have this username just works. Dartbuckets or Dartbucket will work for us, and then we can again copy this password. This will be very useful. So let's copy this right here, and again we can go ahead and choose a connection method. Hold on, yeah, we need to create the database user first. Forgot that. Thanks a lot. And now what we can do is we can choose a connection method. This is here to guide you, and you can again go ahead, read all these things, right? We have drivers that are already built for Node.js, Go, etc., right? And that's mostly it. We mostly need. Let's copy this, and we'll save it somewhere for now. Okay, but we'll close it for now. That's mostly it. So our database is up and running. I guess no, it is not. So it's just getting deployed. Let us now install mongoose on our application. So I can say npm I mongoose. All right. So mongoose is a package that is used to interact with MongoDB in Express very widely. So I definitely encourage you to go out there and read through this documentation. You'll get to know a lot of insights. Right. So I think we are good to go now. Let us create a new file that will be responsible for instantiating our connection to the MongoDB, right? So you can call it connectdb.js, okay? And to connect to the database, first of all, of course, you need the mongoose itself. So we'll get that mongoose. Right, and we'll create a function called const connectdb. Right, this is going to be an asynchronous function. Let's give our URI right here. Now in case if you're wondering where do you get your URI, so the string that we just copied from the MongoDB atlas, we have to paste it right here. And if you're planning to use the same string as mine, then that is not going to work. So you need to generate your own. Okay, so I have my string right here. In case if you have lost it, you're not able to find it, you can again go back to the MongoDB instance and to your MongoDB atlas, come back right here at database access, and right here you will find all the admin access or whatever users you have created. You can go ahead, edit these. You can again edit the password, generate a password, copy it, right, and update the user, and that will do the trick for you. And if you wish to copy the string, the connection string, you have to come back to database. You will get an option that says connect, right? You can again go back to the drivers and you will find the string right here. This will automatically insert your username. You just have to insert your password, and since I've updated mine, so I'll go ahead and do it right here. Okay, so this is what I have to change. Okay, and again, don't copy this string, this is not going to work. Right, so we do have our connection string in place. Now we can move forward and connect to our database. I can say await mongoose dot connect. Okay, and I'll pass in the mongoose URI. This should be URI actually. Okay, because mongoose is already used, right? And it's a good practice to again wrap this with a try catch block. So I'll do that right now. Just like that, and we can log something like failed to connect to MongoDB. Okay, that should work, and again we can format document. Sweet. Now all we have to do is we need to ensure that we are exporting this function, so we can say module dot exports equals connectdb, just like so, and we will get access to this function right here. Const connectdb equals require. Okay, we need to get access to the file, so we'll say okay, just like that. Now we have the access to this function, and maybe we can call it after we create the Express app, or we can call it just before we start listening to that. Okay, that should work. Right, so this should ensure that our application is connected to the MongoDB atlas. Let's try to run this. So we can say npm run dev. Okay, I think it got connected, but just because we are not logging anything after this message, so I guess we didn't get any response. So let's log something. Log. Okay, that should work. Okay, so we are getting the log MongoDB connected, which means our database is successfully connected. We didn't get into the error block, into the catch block, right? So congratulations, you have finally established connection with your database. We can now query the documents, we can add the documents, and let's see how that works. People, whenever we need to write some data to the to any database, we need a structure, right? And this structure are provided by models. So we will be taking an example of creating a database for pets, right? So we'll create a folder called model, and we will have a file called pet.js, right? Because that's the pet model. And now we learn how to create a MongoDB model or a Mongoose model in theory, right? So we'll say we first need the access to Mongoose. Okay, we didn't need that. We'll say Mongoose. Okay, there's something wrong with my suggestions, I guess. Okay, we can say require Mongoose, right? Now we need schema, and we get it on mongoose.schema. Yeah, just like that. And now we can create a pet schema. New schema. And by the way, this schema, this tells you what's the structure of the document going to be inside your MongoDB, right? So we have a field called name. We need a name for our pet, and this is going to be of type string. Let's add some space there. Sweet. Is it required? For now, it's true. For things that you cannot create a document, without, needs to be marked required true, so that if somebody is trying to create a pet without a name, then definitely that is not going to happen. This will give you an error. So that's some good rules you can create. Again, the type of the pet, the pet is a cat or a dog, a fish, or whatever it is, right? We need to have the type. This is the key type, and this will decide what type it is in the database, right? Let us have string for now. Require can be true, because of course we need to know what it is, right? And finally we need to know age, right? Age in months. So this is going to be of type number, right? And we can again mark require true, because we need to know what is the age of the animal. Okay, that's sweet. And finally, we will create a Mongoose model. Now let us understand real quick what is the difference, right? It's going to go to pet collection, and pet going to be of type pet schema. And finally, let's export this. Okay, so people, the schema decides what the real structure of the document is going to be, and the model gives you functions so that you can query this data, you can update this data, right? And all in all, be able to interact with this in your Express application or in your JavaScript application, right? Whatever you call it. Okay, so that's I think that's more than sufficient, right? Let us now create few functions, helper functions that will help us to interact with them. So we can create a new file called sample db operations, or db CRUD will be more appropriate, CRUD.js. And inside of this file, we'll write few basic operations. Again, we will of course learn how to create documents, how to delete documents, update, and really fetch them, right? So first of all, we need access to the pet model itself. We get it by saying pet model equals require model slash pet. Okay, that's where our pet model is situated. We'll create a function that is responsible for creating a pet. Create pet, right? Okay, to create pet we need some data, right? Let's call it pet data for now with a small p, pet data, right? So this data comes in and we construct our pet on the basis of this pet data. So we'll call it a new pet that equals new pet model, and need to pass in the pet data just like so, right? And then we can save it and we'll get it not like that. We'll save it by saying new pet dot save. Okay, and this needs to be this returns a promise. So let's have it like so, new pet. Okay, new pet is already used. Let's call it saved pet because we need to know what was saved and we need to await it. We need to wait for this function to execute, to save it, I mean really run the query for us. So, and to use await, this needs to be an asynchronous function. That should work. And finally, when we have saved our new pet, we will return the saved pet just like so. Sweet. The same way we can also create a function to find our pet. So we can say find pet, and this time we need an ID so that we can use that ID to find out which pet it is. Okay, and finally the pet is going to be pet model dot, and we get a function called find by ID in which we are going to pass this ID, and whatever pet we get we are going to return it, return pet. And of course this is going to take some time, and that is why we need to await for it to finish. And just to use await, this function needs to be marked asynchronous, right? Because this function is going to take some time and this function is going to return something to us in the future, right? So this returns a promise. Okay, that makes sense. So this should be enough to find a pet. Let's try to update pet. And again, so updating is a bit different because first of all we need to know which pet it is. So we need to know the ID and the update data. Okay, update data contains whatever fields. What if you like to update the name of the pet, it will contain the new name. If we wish to update the name of the age of the pet, it should have age. And if we wish to update the type, and of course people might forget it's a cat or a dog. Horrible people. Okay, so that's something we are going to do. So first of all we need to find if this pet really exists. So what we will say is, we can say const pet equals pet model dot find by ID and pass in the ID. But hold on, our task is to find it and update it, right? So there's no point in making two queries. What else we can do is we can say find by ID and update, right? This will ensure that if there is a pet with a given ID, it will find it and will also update. Okay, now what we are going to do is we are going to use set here, and we will pass in the updated data, update pet, because this one like so, the updated up, there's something wrong with the spelling, right? So this will pass in the updated data, and whenever it's done we want this whole function to return the new value. So we're going to say new equals true, just like so, and we are going to await on this again because this is also something that is going to take time. And finally we will return the pet that was updated. Okay, and let us try also to delete it. Let us create a function for that, const delete pet equals asynchronous, because again we know that this is going to take time. We need to know what ID it is, and finally we will create the functional body. Yes. So you can say pet, or let us call it the deleted pet. Deleted pet, and we can say await, because we know this is going to take some time. It's a pet model dot find by id and delete, pass in the id just like so, and return the deleted pet. All right, that's I think that's more than sufficient. We can now, there's something wrong. Okay, we're not returning this one. We need to return this just like that. Okay, now I think seems fine, and we will now export all our functions. So we can say module dot exports equals, we have create pet, we have find pet, we have update pet, and also delete pet. So we are exporting all our functions, and again we can import them in our app.js to test all these functions, right? So what we can do is we can simply copy all this. We'll go back to our app.js, and in here we can do this, paste them here and say require sample db CRUD. That makes sense. That's where we have all our functions. Okay, now let us create some basic requests. So we'll create a post request on the endpoint /pet /create, because we need to create a pet. Again, request response, same old drill, just like so. And we will be passing some data from the front end. So we will be getting it on the request. So we can say final, not, oh, sorry, this is JavaScript. Just switch contexts. Okay, so we say final, constant pet data, that's inside request.body. And then we can call our function. So we will call this function create pet, and the create pet, we need to pass in the pet data. So we'll simply say create pet, we'll pass in the data. Okay, not this data, the pet data. Okay. And finally, we would have some result. Okay. And since this returns the result sometime in the future, so we need to await this. So we'll await. And since we are using await here, we need to mark this function asynchronous, just like that. Okay, and whenever we have this data, we can again return that by saying response.send result, and we can always return this. I think that should work. So the app was already restarted for us by our Node. Let us try to open Postman and try to hit a request. I'll go ahead and create a new collection. Okay, I'll create a new collection right here, and I'll call it pets, right? And I'll create a new request. I'll say add request. I'll call it create. To create a pet, I have to hit a request to localhost 3000 /pet/create, just like that. And we need to construct the body. You'll say raw, we'll select JSON. We'll have a name for the pet. Let's call it Tom with a capital T. Okay, and if you guessed the right type, it's a dog. No, it's a cat. And the age is, no one knows the age of Tom, so I am going with 36 months. Tom is a cat, 3 years old. That's fine. Let's try to hit the request. Okay, there's some error. Let's see what's the error. So it says cannot get pet/create. Indeed, but why is that? Okay, that's because it's of type post. So again, we'll go back to the postman and make it a post request, and we'll send this. Okay, we are getting something back. We are getting back an ID. There's something wrong here. This shouldn't, this is what not we are expecting. We'll go back to our database right here. We will go to browse collections. Let's see what happened. So this made our database as test. We can go to pets. Okay, this created something with some empty ID. Let's try to understand what happened. What went wrong? So we are getting the pet data on request body. Let us try to log what we're getting here. Log pet data. Okay, let's go back to our postman. Let's send the request. Okay, it's undefined. Right, it's a very common beginner problem that we all do. So we can also always say app.use. We need to ensure that our app is parsing the JSON data, whatever is coming through. So we need to say app.use express.json. It needs to use this middleware, right? So that all our requests, all the request data that is coming in is parsed, right? So let us go back to our database and delete this document. We don't need it anymore, and we delete this as well. Okay, now let's go back to our postman and try to hit the request again. All right, it went through because we are getting the right expected data. It tells us what ID it is in the database. It tells us name, type, and the age. Let us go back to our database, refresh. Let's see if the data came in. Okay, there we go. So we get our document, and congratulations, we have done our very first write operation in our database, right? Let's now try to read it. To read this, we made a function called findPet where we need to have the ID, and now we know what the ID is, right? So what we'll do is we'll again try to create a similar endpoint, and this time we'll say find, and we know we are going to get the ID. We'll destructure the ID like this. Okay, just like that. And inside, instead of create pet, we'll say find pet and pass in the ID. And remember to destructure the ID exactly the same way, because it exists on this ID. So if you're doing this body.id, then this should be ID. But just because I'm saying request.body, then that's why I'm destructuring it in this way, right? Okay, let's try it. Let's try to hit that. We'll open our postman. We will duplicate this request, right? And instead of pet/create, we'll say pet/find. We'll go to the body. This time we will pass ID, and we have the ID from our previous request right here. We'll pass this in here just like that, and this is going to be a post request. Let's see, is this of type post? Yes. Let's try to hit this. Okay, something went wrong, something isn't right, so this gives us an error. Okay, so we don't know what pet data is. We can remove that. Let's wait for it to restart. Let's hit the request. Okay, congratulations. Now we can also find out the documents using the ID. Okay, and if this worked for you, why don't you subscribe? Okay, let's create another request. Let's try to update something. So we'll say pet/update, and this time we are getting the update update data, right? And we'll call the update pet method, but the update pet method function takes in an ID and a update data, right? So we know that we are going to definitely pass the ID, so this is going to be on update data.id, and the update data is going to be this object itself. right? And whatever result we get, we are going to return. Okay, so we'll go back to the postman. Our create worked. Okay, so this is fine. Let's rename it to find, just like so. Let's clone this one. Okay, let's call it update, and instead of calling the find, let's call the update endpoint. Okay, in the body we already passing the id. Let's pass in a name. Instead of Tom, let it be Claire. Okay, not Claire. Let's call it Scooter. Right, Scooter is a good name for a cat. Let's hit request. Okay, so we get the expected result. We are getting the updated name. Let us check in the DB whether it was updated. Let's refresh this. All right, the name is also updated here. We say Scooter right here. Okay, that seems to be working. Let us try to also delete this data. App.post. Hold on, why am I doing that? Let's copy this. Let's paste it here. This is going to take a delete type. Delete endpoint this is going to be, and this needs to be the ID. We destructure it the way we did for the find, because all we need is the ID. We'll say delete pet, and we will pass in the ID right here. Okay, let's test this out as well. And instead of update, we can again duplicate this request. We'll call it delete, and then we will say delete. Right, we go back to the body. We don't need the name. ID is more than sufficient. Okay, let's hit the request. Okay, something isn't right. So this says unexpected. Okay, this comma shouldn't be there. Let's see if the app is still running. Let's restart. Okay, let's try to send the request. Okay, so this was supposed to return the result of the deleted pet, right? Let us go to the database and try to refresh this. Let's see if this goes away. All right, the pet document is now deleted. So people, congratulations, you have finally learned how to perform a CRUD operations on a MongoDB database. People, if you understand this, you are halfway a backend developer, right? In the next series, in the next video, we will learn how you can really get your users authenticated, and we will save the users data inside the MongoDB, and we will authenticate the APIs. So guys, stay tuned, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.